In a quiet little village surrounded by tall pine trees and frozen lakes lived a young girl named Anya. Her world was small but beautiful, a patchwork of wooden cottages, smoke curling from chimneys, and the steady rhythm of life shaped by the changing seasons. Every morning, before the first rays of sunlight touched the snow, Anya would rise to help her grandmother with chores. She fetched water from the well, chopped wood for the fire, and fed the hens that clucked sleepily behind their fence. Though the work was hard, she never complained. Her grandmother often told her, "A warm heart makes even cold hands forget the frost," and Anya believed it. She found happiness in the simplest of things, the sparkle of frost on the window, the laughter of her neighbors, or the sound of church bells ringing through the winter air. The people of the village admired Anya's cheerful spirit. They often said she had a light in her eyes that not even the darkest night could dim. But times were hard. The winter had come earlier that year, and the snow fell heavier than anyone could remember. Food was scarce, and the villagers huddled inside their homes, praying for warmth. Still, Anya went from house to house, carrying small bundles of firewood or bits of bread for the elderly. "We must share what little we have," she would say, smiling. "Kindness multiplies faster than grain." Some people shook their heads. How could a child believe such things? Yet when she left, their homes always felt a little brighter, a little warmer. One bitterly cold evening, as the sun disappeared behind the forest, Anya noticed a dark figure stumbling through the snow. It was a traveler, wrapped in a torn cloak, his steps slow and unsteady. Without a second thought, Anya ran toward him, her boots sinking deep into the snow. "Sir! Please, come with me, you'll freeze out here," she cried. The man lifted his weary eyes, surprised by her voice. He was pale and trembling, but he managed to whisper, I have walked for days." Anya didn't hesitate. She took his arm and led him toward her small home, her breath forming clouds in the icy air. Her grandmother gasped when she saw them. "Anya, you cannot bring strangers inside." But when she looked closer and saw the man's shaking hands and hollow eyes, her tone softened. Together, they placed him near the fire, covering him with blankets. Anya ladled warm soup into a bowl and held it out carefully. "Here, eat. You'll feel better soon," she said. As the man ate, color slowly returned to his cheeks. "You have saved my life," he murmured. "Why would you help a stranger?" Anya simply smiled. "Because everyone deserves warmth. Someday, when you can, help someone else too." Before leaving the next morning, the traveler reached into his pack and took out a small wooden amulet. It was carved with strange, swirling symbols that glowed faintly in the morning light. "Take this," he said softly. "It will remind you that true kindness never fades, it travels from heart to heart." Anya accepted the charm and held it tightly in her small hands. She didn't understand why it felt warm, even in the cold. But she knew one thing, the traveler's words were true. Kindness had a power of its own, a magic that didn't need spells or stars, only a pure heart. The traveler disappeared beyond the forest path, leaving behind only footprints and a faint glimmer of light on the snow. Anya stood by the door, holding the wooden amulet close to her chest. It was smooth and warm, almost as if it had a heartbeat of its own. When she showed it to her grandmother, the old woman crossed herself and whispered, "This is no ordinary charm, my child." That night, as the wind howled outside and snow piled high against the windows, Anya couldn't sleep. She kept turning the amulet over in her palm, tracing the strange symbols carved into it. When the candle flickered, she thought she saw a soft glow coming from the wood, faint, golden, and alive. She smiled, thinking it must be her imagination. The days that followed were the coldest the village had seen in years. The river froze so hard that even the fishermen gave up trying to break through the ice. Families stayed indoors, burning what little firewood they had left. But despite the deep chill, Anya's home always seemed a little warmer than the rest. Her grandmother noticed it too. "It feels as if spring hides in these walls," she said. Anya began helping her neighbors more often than ever. She carried hot soup to an old woman who lived alone near the woods, and brought bread to the blacksmith's children. Every time she gave something away, the amulet seemed to shimmer faintly, as if it approved of her kindness. One evening, while returning from the well, Anya saw smoke rising in the distance. Someone's barn was on fire. Without thinking, she ran toward it, her breath catching in the freezing air. Flames leapt high into the night sky, and people shouted in panic. "We'll lose everything," cried the farmer's wife. Anya didn't hesitate. She grabbed a bucket, filled it from the well, and dashed toward the flames. Others tried to stop her, but her courage stirred them to act. Soon, dozens of villagers were helping, forming a line to pass buckets of water. Slowly, the fire began to fade, replaced by smoke and relief. When it was finally over, everyone stood shivering, staring at the barn that still stood, blackened but not lost. Anya looked down at her chest, where the amulet hung. It was glowing softly, a warm, gentle light pulsing like a heartbeat. Gasps filled the air. "It's a miracle," someone whispered. But Anya just smiled and said quietly, "It's only kindness. It always finds its way back." The next morning, strange things began to happen. The frost near Anya's home melted faster than anywhere else. A few flowers peeked through the snow, impossibly blooming in midwinter. Birds gathered by her window, chirping songs of spring. The villagers whispered that Anya was blessed, that the amulet carried ancient magic meant to reward the pure-hearted. But Anya didn't seek praise or gifts. She continued her daily chores, helped others when she could, and laughed when the children called her the girl with the glowing heart. Deep inside, she felt that the real magic was not in the amulet, it was in what it reminded her to do. And sometimes, when the night was quiet and the moon hung low over the village, she thought she could hear a soft whisper carried by the wind, the traveler's voice saying, "Keep doing good, little one. The world will remember your light." Winter slowly began to fade, though the air still carried a bite of frost. The villagers had grown used to small wonders, flowers blooming early, fires burning longer, and laughter echoing even through the coldest nights. Everyone said it was because of Anya, the girl with the glowing amulet. Some came to her door to thank her, others came simply to see the charm that seemed to bring warmth wherever it went. One bright morning, as the snow started to melt into little silver streams, the sound of wheels creaking echoed through the village square. It was rare to see visitors, especially from the city, but that day a fine black carriage rolled in, its horses puffing steam into the cold air. From it stepped a tall man dressed in a dark fur coat, his spectacles gleaming in the sunlight. He looked around with sharp, curious eyes, as though searching for someone. "Excuse me," he asked a baker nearby. "I am looking for a girl named Anya. They say she possesses something extraordinary." His tone was kind, but his curiosity was unmistakable. Within minutes, word spread through the village, "A stranger has come from Moscow to see the girl with the magic charm." Anya met him near the well, the same place she had first seen the traveler months ago. The man bowed politely and introduced himself. "My name is Professor Mikhail Orlov," he said. "I study ancient symbols and stories, and your amulet, my dear, bears markings I have not seen in many years." Anya hesitated, clutching the wooden charm around her neck. "It was a gift," she said softly. "From a traveler who came during the snowstorm. He said it brings happiness to those who do good with a pure heart." Mikhail smiled kindly, kneeling slightly so his eyes met hers. "A wise gift indeed. May I look at it?" His voice carried no greed, only gentle curiosity. Anya nodded and handed it to him carefully, her fingers lingering as if afraid to let go. The professor studied it under the daylight, tracing the swirling carvings with his gloved hand. "These symbols," he murmured, "belong to an old brotherhood of healers, people who believed that kindness itself was a living force, passed from one person to another. They made amulets like this centuries ago to protect those with hearts pure enough to guide others." Anya listened, wide-eyed. "So, it's magic," she asked. Mikhail shook his head slowly. Not the kind of magic from fairy tales. It's the magic of belief, the kind that grows when people help one another. This amulet does not create kindness, it reflects it. That night, Mikhail stayed in the village as a guest. Around the fire, he listened to stories of how the amulet had changed lives, how it had inspired courage, healed old friendships, and filled the village with hope. As the fire crackled and the stars glittered above, the professor turned to Anya and said, "You have done what many learned men could not, you've reminded people of their own light." When Anya went to bed that night, she placed the amulet by the window as she always did. The moonlight caught the carvings, and for a moment, they shimmered brighter than ever before. She thought she saw the traveler's reflection smiling faintly in the glass. And then, just as her eyes began to close, she heard a voice, warm and familiar, whispering, "The journey isn't over, little one. There is still more light to give." The next morning, the first light of dawn painted the snow in shades of gold and pink. Anya woke early, her thoughts still echoing with the traveler's voice from her dream. The air felt different that day, alive, as though the whole forest was holding its breath. She dressed quickly and stepped outside, the amulet warm against her chest, glowing faintly beneath her scarf. Professor Mikhail was already waiting near the well, sketching something in his notebook. When he saw Anya, he smiled. "I couldn't sleep," he admitted. "This place, it's unlike anywhere I've been. There's an energy here, something old, gentle, and powerful." Anya nodded. "I think it comes from the forest," she said quietly. "That's where the traveler came from." They decided to follow the path leading into the woods. The villagers watched them go with a mix of wonder and worry. "Be careful, Anya," her grandmother called. "The forest keeps secrets, and not all of them are kind." Anya smiled reassuringly, though her heart beat fast with both fear and curiosity. The forest was beautiful and haunting all at once. Sunlight slipped between tall pines, scattering golden beams on the snow. The silence was deep, the kind that made every crunch of their boots sound like thunder. As they walked, Mikhail noticed that birds followed them, flitting from branch to branch. "Even the forest watches over you," he said softly. After a while, they reached a massive old oak, its roots twisting like ancient arms through the earth. The snow around it had melted in a perfect circle, leaving the ground bare and warm. "Look," Anya whispered, kneeling beside the roots. "It's like the tree is alive." She brushed away the dirt and uncovered something hard and smooth. Together, they dug carefully until a small wooden box emerged, weathered by time, yet still intact. It was carved with the same swirling symbols as the amulet. Mikhail's hands trembled slightly as he lifted it. "This," he breathed, "is from the same craftsman who made your charm. It's older than both of us, perhaps hundreds of years old." Inside the box was a folded piece of parchment, yellowed and fragile. Anya held her breath as Mikhail carefully opened it. The ink was faded, but the words were still clear. "To the bearer of the light, this charm is a seed of kindness. Give it to one who will not keep it for themselves, but share its warmth with the world. The true power lies not in the wood, but in the heart that carries it." Anya's eyes filled with tears. "It was never about the amulet," she said softly. "It was about what it reminded me to do." Mikhail nodded solemnly. "Yes. The traveler must have been one of the last guardians of this wisdom, passing it to those who still believe in goodness." The wind whispered gently through the trees, almost like a sigh of relief. Anya closed the box, feeling peace settle deep within her chest. She looked up toward the sunlight breaking through the branches. "He found me for a reason," she said. "And now, I know what I must do." They walked back to the village in silence, their footprints marking a trail between the past and the present. In Anya's heart, the amulet pulsed softly, no longer just a gift, but a promise. When Anya and Professor Mikhail returned to the village, the sun was setting behind the distant hills, painting the snow in shades of amber and rose. The villagers gathered around as Anya held up the wooden box. They listened as she told them everything, about the forest, the ancient oak, and the letter written centuries ago. The people were silent for a long time, their eyes shining in the golden light. Finally, her grandmother stepped forward and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "My child," she said, voice trembling, "you've given us more than warmth. You've given us faith again." Anya smiled, tears of gratitude glimmering in her eyes. "I only did what he taught me," she whispered. "Kindness travels, it never stays in one heart alone." That winter became the warmest one anyone could remember. Neighbors began helping each other without being asked. They shared food, built shelters for travelers, and took care of the lonely and the sick. Even the old arguments that had divided families faded away. It was as if the whole village had awakened from a long, cold dream. Professor Mikhail stayed for several weeks, studying the amulet and its history. But the more time he spent there, the more he realized the truth: the magic he had come to study wasn't carved into wood. It lived in people's hands, smiles, and hearts. Before leaving, he told Anya, "You've taught me something no book ever could. Kindness is the oldest science, and the truest." One night, when the stars burned bright and the moon hung low over the frozen fields, Anya sat by her window, gazing at the amulet glowing softly in the dark. It had become part of her now, a reflection of the light she carried inside. She felt at peace, but a small voice inside her whispered, "Your journey is not over." In the spring, Anya packed a small bag with bread, a blanket, and the amulet. She kissed her grandmother goodbye and promised to return. "Where will you go, my dear?" the old woman asked. Anya smiled. "Wherever there is cold, I will bring warmth. Wherever there is sorrow, I will bring kindness." And with that, she walked toward the horizon, the forest wind brushing her hair like a blessing. Years passed, and the story of the girl with the glowing amulet spread far beyond her village. Travelers told tales of a young woman who appeared in stormy nights, helping the lost and healing broken hearts. They said that wherever she went, the snow melted a little faster and hope bloomed like flowers in winter. Back in the village, people kept her memory alive. Children grew up hearing her story and learning her lesson: kindness is the light that never fades. Every year, when the first snow fell, they gathered at the old oak in the forest, lighting candles in her honor. And each time, a soft breeze would pass through the trees, warm and gentle, as if someone unseen was smiling. Some say that on certain nights, when the moon is full and the forest is still, a faint glow can be seen between the pines, the light of Anya's amulet, still shining for the world. Others say the light comes from the hearts she touched, the endless reflection of one pure act of love. And so, her story lived on, not in books or carvings, but in every kind word, every open hand, every soul brave enough to care. Because in the end, the true magic was never in the amulet at all. It was, and always would be, in the heart.